And once more, welcome back, everybody, to more Mechabellum, playing against Mr. Dolmant V2.0, version 2.0. He's starting with Marksman, Stormcaller, and Arclight. And what am I going to start with? I take the Speed Specialist with Stormcaller Crawler. Well, this is certainly not entirely my favorite lineup, but at least the Orangeman here is not really finding much value, I would assume. Because it is very likely to just get splashed by some Stormcrawlers. Overall, I think these packs are fairly balanced. I have a speed spec, which makes my units faster. They can evade the storms easier. I simply add some Arclights, and my opponent is playing basically the same units, but has an orange man and a bit of a different distribution of units. Arclights are fast, but the crawlers are faster and can cover him. My units swing into action a bit faster. Orange Man is already down to about half health, but unfortunately the Arclights are now going to shield him. On this side, it's kinda literally entirely even. So the storm off will be decided by basically pure luck and I guess positioning. So far my opponent is winning the storm off, and this side has been destroyed. Orange Man evades the shots, and my opponent wins the first round quite dominantly, honestly. Round numero 2. EMP impact or haste module, even redeployment is definitely not bad. And if you're going for some juicy flanks, I think even the strike specialist is worth picking up. But we'll see. I picked the haste module because more damage is more gooder. And my opponent, what's he going to do? Well, we'll see in a moment. I decided to pick some more Stormcallers and throw him out on the flanks, hoping to splash Orange Man. I'm not very keen of putting more chaff out into Arclights and more, what's it called? More medium-sized units into Orange Man. So I'm trying to go for artillery. My opponent has entirely different plans, as you can see. He picked redeployment and threw out some wasps. I have literally no anti-air. I did unlock fangs, but I didn't use, or rather purchase any, so not working. Meanwhile, my opponent is using the redeployment to put the Arclight in a position where it is not symmetrical either, which I very much so question. Let me slow that down, even though it's very clear that I'm gonna lose. Chances are good that I'm gonna get Orange Man here, at least I hope so. Probably not, no. The crawlers are going to distract forever. And the tower debuff is incoming. Overall, this round is an overwhelming defeat. That would have occurred even if I had not in any way, shape or form gone, well, blank on anti-air. The Wasps also leveled. We're gonna see some pretty annoying Wasps here. We have some Fangs that are basically guaranteed to stop these Wasps. We have an Overlord, we have Sabertooths, Melting Points, very decent units. My opponent decides to go for the Sabertooths. I would normally do that, but I don't really want to play that into Orange Man, and my problem is kinda air. So I decide to take the Overlord and put it there, but I didn't really watch out because my opponent has the redeployment. And he's going in on the flank, where I have, you guessed it, 0 anti-air so far. I decide to drop some additional Fangs and another Overlord. The Fangs will slow this down, but they are not enough to defeat level 2 Wasps. Level 2 Wasps, if memory serves, do defeat, at least if they're not shot at while spawning, they do defeat both Mustangs and Fangs at level 1. I think even level 1 Wasps defeat Fangs, which I guess is fair. Considering that right now there's no text in the game. Now, I do have some good firepower here, but I'm definitely not liking what I see here. My opponent has chosen the cheesy route of taking towers. I was gonna say that there will be pretty annoying Wasps, and this is not the end of it. I don't have the chaff clear here. My Stormcrawlers have mostly been shooting bigger units. My opponent definitely does not have the anti-air here. Stormcrawlers basically annihilated, so at least damage will be somewhat limited. But there's a lot of very annoying units left. Under the tower debuff, however, I do get Orange Man, which means this boat is just about leveling. Yeah, here we go. But at the same time, they are still level 2 Wasps and nothing to deal with them. The Stormcaller does distract the opponent for long enough, and surely these Wasps cannot win against 2 Overlords. At the end of the day, despite going for a good play on the tower snipe, I was able to delay it with the Wasps for long enough, so that I didn't lose the tower quickly enough. It's round 4, and you know what? It's time to nuke. I've decided just freaking nuke it. Nuke it from orbit. Nuke goes in, level on the Overlord. Some additional fangs, because, well, I need it. I need to protect myself from these wasps that are most likely going to come from a different angle now. I decide to put some of this chaff as delayed chaff. Do I really deploy all the chaff here? I guess I'm kind of counting on this Overlord to go in and kill the wasps if they do show up. My opponent, what did he take? Elite Crawler, and he's put some Elite Crawlers right at the front, where I can definitely not deal with it. He also deploys the Wasps closer. Since they have already spawned in on this side of the flank, they will actually just exist here and instantly start shooting, because they have technically spawned in on this flank. If you had moved them to the other flank, they would spawn in. But if you move a unit in whichever, or from whatever reason, redeployment, jump drive, deployment module, and it's in the same flank, it will actually keep the unit at the it will start in a spawned in kind of way. It's difficult for me to put into words. Anyhow, the nuke annihilated everything here, but I'm not even near the tower so far. Boats and yeah, even the missiles are doing whatever they can against this. Tower falls, which means my units definitely get to shoot their heart out right now. But so far they're only shooting their heart out at chaff. And chaff is abundant still. My opponent did go for a pretty big play with these leveled crawlers. At the end of the day, I can't even effectively remove the chaff, and my opponent wins the round pretty dominantly. And that is despite the nuke eliminating about half his army. Should have dropped it on the other side. I think that would have been way better. We have some Typhoons, some Mustangs, Tarantulas, Wraiths. He goes for the Mustangs. I'm thinking that I need to deal with these crawlers, and one good unit to deal with crawlers is a Typhoon. And yeah, this Typhoon is definitely going to be good against these potentially level 6 crawlers that can survive Stormcaller missiles at level 1. I do go further into Overlords, but my opponent has chosen to counter them. He gets both the anti-missile on the Sabers, which counters the Stormcrawlers, and the Overlords to some extent at least. I did decide to sell one of the Stormcrawlers, so I'm kinda going away from missiles now. But I invest further into Overlords. I was thinking maybe I can mass Overlord this to victory. You go into enough Overlords and give them enough techs, they can definitely do some damage. Although they are much, much, much worse than they were in the past. I'm hoping that this Typhoon can hold the line. My opponent has moved the Wasps back because, well, there's a new threat for them to counter. And they will not be able to do much on this flank anymore. All they do right now is give these flanks some levels. He decides to drop more marksmen. Definitely reasonable. He levels them... No, he doesn't deploy leveled marksmen. I think I would have liked it more if he had deployed more leveled marksmen. More damage, but I guess he now has a very good amount of anti-air. The poor Saber cannot possibly hope to intercept all of this. Trawlers do get eliminated by the Typhoons. And they can also tank for quite a while. Still, a lot of my units die in the process. Finally, the Typhoons are done with it. They have basically gained half a level, but you can see that now this side is looking horrible. Despite Overlords sort of raining from the sky, the Overlords are simply shooting the chaff. And finally, all of the chaff is gone, but there's only some Stormcrawlers left. Tower falls. One of the marksmen fell, and these marksmen can all level. Literally the entire line. So maybe my assumption of going for leveled marksmen wasn't even remotely correct. At this moment I feel very devastated because I am thoroughly countered on all fronts. I don't even have a reasonable army. I neglected to go into a reasonable army by virtue of Orange Man existing. And my opponent has made some pretty cool tempo plays with both these now level 3 Wasps. Well, they have been in the previous round as well. Didn't get too much done this time, but he's gonna make them do more. He's already hit the redeployment on them. Throws them here. There is currently no anti-air in like this middle area, middle quadrant, however you want to call it. He unlocks the missile and throws them at some of the Stormcallers. He is definitely going in, but he doesn't do smoke. I guess there's just no reason. I decide that if one giant couldn't get the job done, it's time for another giant. It's time for the fortress. He goes for anti-air on the marksman. I've already begun selling out of these overlords. I don't see a future for them anymore. My opponent has been very eager to counter my units. Basically the moment that I look like I commit into them. And I have been trying to switch out, but it's very, very tough selling out of 3 Stormcallers and 3 Overlords in a meaningful time frame. Instead now I'm sitting on 2 level 2 fortresses and basically hoping that they can win. And guess what I still don't have? No anti-air here, and a shield is going to block a very important part of that smoke. And this missile is going to destroy so much chaff. Very cool place. The Wasps have found basically the perfect spot, because all of the units here get pulled. And they get the tower super quickly. My units get absolutely blasted here. I still am not dead. Not yet. My opponent doesn't really have a lot of giants, so damage is kinda limited, but you can see that nothing here really is surviving. This Typhoon right now is doing its best to keep me alive, but I just get completely overwhelmed.